Hi, it's Lee from coloringqueen.net, and today I want to show you the 150 watercolours that are made by this brand. Now, you can buy these under a number of different titles. They're what we call private label, which means that other brands put their name on it. So you might know them as Hero, for instance, but have a look around. If these are out of stock, then just look for 150 watercolour pencils and you should find them. And if you look at the close-up images on Amazon, for example, you'll see on the barrel that they have the brand name written in. Now, previously reviewed by the same company, 160 oil-based pencils, and their barrel resembled a Prismacolor pencil. The barrel on these ones resembles a Faber-Castell pencil. On the barrel they have a number and also a name. Now they're packed in these very flimsy trays, so you probably will need to get a pencil case in order to enjoy them. And with 150 colours, you've got quite a range of watercolour pencils there to choose from. Now, the oil-based set comes in 160 colours, but they've also got a Christmas edition with 168 colours. And it has extra colours because it has more metallics, whereas this one only has gold and silver in metallics. Now, if you're in the US, I believe that you can purchase these. They're exactly the same, but they've got this beautiful cardboard sleeve over the top of it with a gorgeous decorated flowers, which you'll see on my thumbnail picture. Inside that sleeve is this plastic container with a handle on it, which you really wouldn't want to use too much. It's not that sturdy, but it's better than the trays. The trays are really quite flimsy plastic, very thin plastic, like you would get, you know, a cake from the supermarket in. I do believe that some of these are packed with a colour swatch, a blank one for you to complete, but mine didn't have that in either the oil-based or in these watercolours, so I created my own. So here's my colour swatch. And you can see this in more detail on my blog as per usual at coloringqueen.net. And you can buy these pencils from the links below the video if you wish to. Now, they have both an actual name and a number. Now, this is all being activated water, and it was just one brush over with my water brush. It dissolved super easy. If you want to see what this looks like when they're not activated, check out my review of the oil-based pencils. Unfortunately, I had some video difficulties and the picture of it dry didn't turn out on that video, so I had to redo it. So that's what it looks like activated. Now, out of all of these 150 colours, the only colour that gave me grief activating it with my water brush was the actual gold, and I had to go over that 2 or 3 times just to completely dissolve it. Everything else, it was just one brush with my water brush. So super easy, and a great range of colours and tones within the colour family. Now, the reason that these pencils and the oil-based companion set are so popular is because for the price, they are extremely good value. And I can't think of a price where you can get this many pencils that work quite as well. Now, this is the colour chart for the 160 set that you may not have seen if you haven't watched that video. And I had hoped that the colour numbering system on the oil-based set would match the colouring numbering system on the watercolour set. Unfortunately, that's not the case. However, what I've found from going through some of the pencils and not all of them is that there are some pencils in each colour family where the numbering does match and correspond with the watercolour one. Now, I've just swatched both of these onto cheap copy paper, and I've swatched them as they appear in the tray. So if I sorted them out into colour families, You might find that there is more corresponding colours so that you could use them interchangeably on their works. It's just a shame that they haven't used the same numbering, because that would make it so much easier. Now, I'd previously videoed this and unfortunately technical problems arose. So I'd used some of the pencils on this watercolour image from Christine Aldrich and the same image on actual watercolour paper. So the colours that I used were quite pale, and I actually overlaid the colours and whatnot. So let's pop some colour down so that you can see how they perform on both the cheap copy paper and also on the paper that is watercolour paper. So first of all, I'm going to go over this flower that I've previously activated with water. I'm going to put a darker shade pencil on it. It's been completely dried from the previous use because that was a couple of days ago. So I'm just going to pop some extra colour over there just so that you can see what these pencils are like. Now I'm holding the pencil quite away from the edge, so I'm just getting a light colour. I'd really rather use the oil-based ones. I mean, it's not that you can't use them dry, I just really prefer the oil-based ones. I've just got a ratty old water brush here, and you can see how quickly that dissolved, and it's just absolutely nothing to get out those brush marks and dissolve the pigment on there. We went quite light on that flower, so let's go a bit harder and see what that looks like. So I'm really packing down the colour now, and it's previously had a light pink under it, just so that you can see the difference in applying the actual watercolour with these pencils. And as I said, it's previously had colour on there. Now again, it doesn't take anything to remove the pencil brush marks, just with a tiny little bit of water. I haven't pressed on the barrel here at all, and I've been dipping it off screen. I've been wiping it on a tissue. So you can see how you can reapply over there. So let's try it on the watercolour paper. And this is specially designed for watercolour, so we should get a better result. So we'll go in lightly on this one, and I'll try and hold it back a bit. You can see that I'm not paying any attention to the scribbles because I know that it's going to dissolve out really quickly. Now you can of course put a layer of watercolour down and then come in afterwards and use the pencils. They don't have to be this brand, you can use other brands to colour over it and add some detail if you want. So you can see that just really easily colour goes down and pushes out. Now I've got no information on light fastness or anything fancy like that. It's not a lot of detail. They are very good value. They look like a Faber-Castell, and the oil-based ones look like a Prismacolor. So I'll go in a bit harder on one of these. This has previously had a pink on it, which is completely dried as that was put on a couple of days, and go really hard here. And dissolve it. And see that you can move it around and push it out quite a lot, and those rough marks that I gave it are just easily dissolving out. There we have it. So let's try it without going over anything right from the beginning. So we'll colour this leaf, and this is the watercolour paper. And very easy to go down. So we've seen that we can layer over, we've seen what it's like going on. Let's pop it onto the cheaper paper, and this is just 80 GSM copy paper. And very easy to dissolve, move around, and of course you can come back, add more colour and reactivate that water. So For example, this one was coloured a couple of days ago, so I can just come in and re-wet it and reactivate it if I wanted to add more colour there. So we can see what it's like going down on a damp surface that's already previously been coloured in on cheap copy paper. Now I'm using the cheap copy paper so that you can see what the worst case scenario would be like if you use these pencils. Now on the cheap copy paper, going in for the second time on a wet surface, there is some pilling, as you would expect with non-watercolour based paper. So let's have a look at it on the watercolour based paper, and we'll wet it down again. So we'll wet this one. And remember, this has previously been coloured and wetted, but it had already dried, and we're just going in and we're adding more. So a lot of people like to colour on wet paper. I don't like the feel of it. I don't even like the look of it, but geez, it's bright, isn't it? Wow. Goes on super smooth on the watercolour paper. Certainly much better than the cheap copy paper. But dissolving it out, and maybe it's my technique, it is leaving some brush strokes. So I'll try it with a lighter layer rather than... So I've got to say, with the wet surface and then putting the colour down, and it may be my technique, I don't actually like it on either form of paper, but let's just put a bit of wet over here and not go so hard with the pencil and see what it's like on a lighter layer. And it just dissolves out so quick that you can't even really do a lighter layer. We'll try and get some colour on there. And although that's a lighter layer, I'm still not wrapped with it, to be honest. It is dissolving a lot easier on the bits that I could get to go lighter, but really my preference is to put it on the paper that's dry rather than the wet, because I feel like I have to work hard to try and dissolve these pencil marks, especially here. These ones not so much, where I was careful to do a really light touch. There we have it, a few different techniques. There's certainly some lovely colours in that range, and there's a lovely difference in different tones. So because there's so many colours, there's a range of tones in each colour family, so you can do a really soft gradient because you've got all these different colour tones. So let's see how it sharpens and how it erases. I'll just do a bit of colour here. Now this is the watercolour paper. I'll also do some colour down here on the cheap copy paper so that we can see how it erases. Now, even though I've done a colour swatch and I've done these two things, I actually haven't needed to sharpen these pencils since I've purchased them, but we'll give it a go. Now, using my Lyra plastic eraser on the watercolour paper, and you can see that that is coming off. It's not coming off that well. On the cheap copy paper with the Lyra eraser is coming off, and again, it's not really coming off as fantastic as I would like, but I'm not rubbing that hard because it jiggles around the camera too much. My Tombow eraser, which is my favourite, but because it's a sand eraser, it's really brutal, but it certainly does take off the pigment. But you do need to be careful that you don't take the line art off with it as well. Now, I do know that my sand eraser will also erase on Inktense pencil that's already dried, so it should erase on watercolour that's already dried. But the problem is that you don't want to erase the actual line art, so you need to be very careful, and I'm a bit more clumsy than careful. So trying to be gentle I've taken a little bit of colour off that petal. And let's try it over here. And I've taken a little bit of colour off. I'm trying not to be too rough with the paper. Certainly coming off better on the watercolour paper than on the copy paper. Now, the other thing that this works great with is my Tombow blender pen, which is what I use for itty bitty spaces. So we'll just do this little leaf, and because I'm as blind as a bat, we'll do this little leaf as well. When I use the water brush, it might go everywhere and be too big. So what I like to use is my Tombow blender. It has a tiny nib and also a brush nib on the other side. I've got several of these. This one's a bit janky that I use for blending for this sort of thing. And they are just fabulous for these itty bitty spaces. So this little leaf, rather than using the water brush, just going to use my blender pen and blend that one out. And over here we used him as well. And there we go, activated with the water, with the blender pen, just over here. Such an itty bitty leaf. So there we go, we can use our little blender pen as well. Just wipe it on a piece of paper in order to clean the brush at the end of the barrel. Now, the last thing that we'll do is test the sharpening, and as I said, I haven't needed to sharpen mine, but we'll give it a whirl. My favourite pencil sharpener for the week is this one. It's a Dutch brand, a little bit hard to get. It's very heavy compared to my others, but I do really like it. So I use this also with the oil-based pencils just in the first hole. And as I said, these pencils don't really need sharpening, but one turn and lovely point. Great for getting into those fiddly bits. Now sometimes when you sharpen a pencil, the tip might break. So I just want to show you that that doesn't happen with these pencils. They are completely firm and sturdy. So for the price that they are exceptional value in my opinion. If you're looking for, a lovely range of pencils, they're not a well-known brand name by any means, but they've got a great range, and, if you had those and the oil-based ones, and I think you'd be probably pretty happy, depending on what your, needs are and what your budget is. So no breakage there, there's no sign of it. The barrel's really sturdy, and these ones are sort of a little bit heavier than the actual oil-based ones. They've sort of, got more of the feel of a Faber-Castell, but not quite as much as a Faber-Castell. Similar, but not the same. So that's it for our review of these coloured watercolour pencils, and there's a companion set of oil-based pencils from the same company. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up below. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and click the little bell icon so you can get notified of when I upload new videos. Until next time, happy colouring.